The only real God is the one that you believe in. Start looking for the God in others. And if you find you're tuning into a wave, well then I don't know much about being saved.
Hello, everybody.
Hello, friends.
Welcome into another episode of Spiritual Philosophy Chatter with the Joneses. I am Danny Jones.
And I am Samantha Jones.
And this is episode 230.
230.
What are we talking about today?
This is alcoholism.
Heavy duty.
It is, and we've been talking about doing this episode for a long time, and I feel like it's the right time now. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty good. Mm-hmm. Not that any time is really a good time to talk about it, but I guess we should talk about it.
Yeah, I think after the death of my half-brother to alcoholism a couple weeks ago, it really, has made me see the fallout of how it affects people, and so that's why I say that.
Yeah. All right. Well, before we hop into that one, then, anything you want to talk about from last week?
Yes, last week we did accountability, and I have a couple of listener comments. First from Patricia. She says, one of my biggest pet peeves is when someone steps up to take accountability and apologize, and people say, oh, it's okay. No, it's not. If you respond with something simple like thank you, you are validating them taking responsibility for whatever they did. I have heard this a lot, especially with children, because they are cute and some people think that they can do no wrong. You can teach them to be accountable at a young age if you explain to them how and why what they did affected other people. Maybe it will help them to be better as adults. You know, Patricia, this is something that I didn't realize that I did until a few years back, and it was something that the universe pointed out to me, was that when somebody says, I'm sorry, or takes accountability, you don't need to say it's okay. Because it's not okay. Right. It's not. But you thank them for their apology, or, you know, there's a right way to respond to that.
Yeah.
And coming back at them and being mean to them still is not the right way, but also saying it's okay is not necessarily the right way, because it is kind of condoning what they've done. So thank you. I appreciate your apology or whatever, or I appreciate you taking accountability for that. Is, I think, a better way. So I agree with what Patricia's saying for sure.
Yeah, it's kind of one of those weird things we pass over.
Isn't it?
Going, wait a minute, no, that's not right.
Yeah, it's not okay, but I understand like what we mean when we say that. It's not like, you know, you're condoning it. At least not for me. It wasn't condoning the behavior.
No, I think it's like you're trying to ease the other person's guilty conscience.
Yeah, but I understand how it can be misconstrued.
Yeah.
And then also, Crystal said, hell yeah for talking about the change on the podcast. I'm not all the way done with the episode yet. It really kind of a taboo thing with women because of the pressure to not age in our society, so I love that you're talking about it freely. I've noticed changes with my body, and I'm definitely voicing it to the younger women in my life. But with all that being said, I'm sorry you're going through it. Heart flutters are terrible. One of the biggest issues that I've had is that I don't have anybody to talk to, because my mom has passed, my grandma, everybody, all the women in my life that I feel like I could ask about what is going on have passed. And most of my friends, or like my sister and stuff, they're younger. They haven't gone through it yet. So I totally agree with Crystal. It's something that we should talk more about, that as women, it's very good to talk about and stick together, because we don't know what to expect. I had no idea that this heart fluttering could be caused by the change. No idea at all until I started researching it.
It's a good thing that you learned that.
Very, but it was so weird because it's gone now. It went away. Like, why? What's that all about?
You don't know.
Exactly, but it's very strange. So, anyways, thank you, Crystal. And,
thanks, Crystal.
Appreciate it, and thank you, Patricia, as well for your comments. So that's all that I have from last week, because I figured this is a big topic and we probably are going to need time to talk about it. So I don't have anything else from last week.
Very good.
So let's give our info.
Go for it.
So if you'd like to find me, you can find me at SamanthaJonesPsychicMedium.com. I also have an Etsy page where right now everything is 30% off. I want to do, nice for my customers for the holidays. I feel it from them. I can feel how, like, normally I'm really busy and it just dropped off after Thanksgiving because everybody's so worried about money.
Yeah.
So for all of my readings, they're all on sale. So even the more expensive ones. So just ask me and I'll tell you what the deals are.
Cool.
And then I also wanted to mention the group, that because our discussion group is wonderful. So if you want to be a part of our discussion group, they help us put these episodes together. Just do a search on Facebook for Spiritual Jones's discussion group and it'll come up for you there.
Yes, and thank you to everybody that's there and participates.
They're wonderful, aren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, and then you, sir.
Yes, for my art, djonesartcollection.com for the web, at djonesartcollection for Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. And for my photography, Instagram, at djones71 photography. And then last week I announced my newly released Etsy digital photography store that my wife had helped me a lot with. Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
And that is D Jones Photography 71 for Etsy.
Very good.
And there is also sale going on right now for the holidays.
Yeah.
So check it out.
Check it out, everybody.
And that's all I got.
Great.
Okay. So let's do it then. Episode 230, Alcoholism.
I don't think that we really understand just how many people alcoholism affects.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Like,
I believe it's the number one killer in the country.
I meant to look it up, but I forgot. But I did ask our listeners that. Have you been affected by alcohol, whether it's your problem or someone else's? And 54% said a lot and 20% said a little. Only 5% said no. So that shows you right there that there is some kind of an issue with alcohol, right?
Right.
And I understand, like, this is something that, I've said to you many times that I wish alcohol wasn't legal. But the thing is that as responsible adults, we should be able to partake in something without having to feel like it's going to take over our lives.
Yeah.
And if it was illegal, people are going to find something else, right? They're going to find something else to get rid of their problems. Because
There was a period in time where it was.
Yes,
So
absolutely.
And I do take that back. I may be wrong about the number one killer, but I think it's within the top 3 or top 5.
It is, yeah. I meant to look it up, but I forgot. What did I do with my phone? It's here somewhere. I'll look it up. But anyways, what is the definition of alcoholism, first of all? Yes, I see the phone. I will look it up. Okay. The definition is, essentially, alcoholism is the most severe manifestation of alcohol abuse, formerly known as alcohol use disorder. It's characterized into 3 levels: mild, moderate, and severe, each with distinct symptoms and potential harmful consequences. When left unaddressed, any level of alcohol abuse can escalate and adversely affect various aspects of life, including professional endeavors, personal relationships, and overall well-being. The persistent and serious side effects of continuous alcohol abuse can lead to increasingly detrimental complications over time.
Right.
It is a very, very serious disease. And it is a disease. It absolutely is.
Oh, heck yeah. It is. I mean, again, it's like, is it hereditary? Is anything really hereditary? I don't know. I mean, I guess, yeah. However, there's something about it that's behavioral. And I think, like some of us are drawn to it.
Yeah.
The substance, and some of us aren't.
Yeah.
But that goes with a lot of things. Some people overeat and others don't,
This is a very old report. This is 2011, so we know these numbers are probably higher now.
Oh, yeah.
But the World Health Organization said that about 2.5 million people die worldwide each year from alcohol-related causes. And the report says that it is the leading cause of death for males ages 15 to 59. 15 to 59.
15. Wow.
Wow.
Yeah. That's
crazy.
But that's for America, right?
That's worldwide.
Globally.
Mm-hmm. That was the
Wow,
World Health Organization. So
that's where the 15, I think, comes in.
Yeah,
I think
probably,
other countries maybe might be starting younger. But
for us, I think we should tell our stories about how alcoholism has affected our lives, because for both of us, it has been a major, major influence in our lives. We both have very different stories, but I come from a family, you were talking about genetics, and I do have that in here somewhere. I do believe that some of it is proven to be genetics, but I don't believe all of it is. And I say that because my mother and my aunt, very much alcoholics. Whether they want to admit it or not, they were in that mild category.
Right.
Neither one going to die from cirrhosis. They're not major alcoholics. But there were things that my mom did when I was a kid that I didn't realize were red flags that she was. Like, she carried little bottles of alcohol in her purse wherever she went. Yeah. Everywhere we went. There was a stage in my life before she had my brother that she would pick me up from school and take me to a bar every day. And I would sit there and play Pac-Man and, eat pretzels for dinner by myself.
But that seemed normal to you because that's what you did.
Yes.
That's, as a little kid, you're not, it's not a field trip to the bar with other mothers and other kids. But you see other adults there, so you think, well, this is normal.
Did.
It doesn't cross your mind maybe at first that there's not other children
Yeah.
or a flood or, a huge amount of other children.
You're right. I never,
there.
you know what? I honestly never thought about that. And I'm thinking, wait a minute. There were no other kids there. It was just me and the Pac-Man machine.
But you assume because there's a Pac-Man machine that's intended for children.
It probably is so that their parents could sit at the bar
Well,
and
maybe
drink.
and maybe not.
Right.
Too,
Well, and what's interesting is that, we're talking about the 80s. It's very different now. You can't have a child in a bar, but literally the bar was like where the computer is to me, which is like 5 feet. We were right there.
Yeah.
It was, So kind of crazy. My mom started feeding me alcohol from a very young age. She always justified it with something like, there was nothing else to drink, or, you're with me. But at 7 years old, allowing your kid to drink off of your rum and Coke at the pool is probably not the greatest idea. But the bigger problem with it...
Or I'll have a virgin daiquiri.
Wink,
wink.
Wink, wink, yeah. But the bigger problem of it was that my mother was not honest about her problem. She instead projected it onto the man that I was known to be my father, John.
Yeah.
She raised me thinking that he was an alcoholic, and the way she justified that was by saying, I don't wake up in the morning and start drinking right away. He does. Right. Okay, well, my mom and my actual dad, they met at a bar. They met at a bar, okay? Yeah. And my dad is an alcoholic, and John was an alcoholic, and my sister was, and my half-brother that just died. It's just always been there right in front of me. But the thing is that I never went that direction. Yeah. I have avoided alcohol most of my life except during the time when I was single or like partying. I'll have a drink every once in a while now, although the last time I had an allergic reaction. So we're going to try that again and see how it goes. But I don't condone, too much drinking, but I think that people should be allowed to do what they want to do. Yeah. You should be allowed to have a drink. If you're responsible, have your beverages, Yeah. But I don't think people understand how out of control it can get and how quickly that can happen.
Yeah. And what it does to a family. Because I look at this and think this is a disease.
Yeah.
Right? Alcoholism. But it's also, I don't know how to put it, but it's almost like secondhand smoke. Yeah. Like if you grow up around someone that smokes, then I ingested a ton of cigarette smoke before I ever actually had my own first cigarette.
Yeah, you did.
So did my sister.
Yeah.
But alcoholism and this is similar in the sense that it's like a wrecking ball that comes through the walls.
Yeah. And
whoever's in the way, sorry, you just get it.
That's true.
You just get it.
Yeah.
Because it does create this Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde effect on a lot of people, especially when too much is administered.
Yes.
So because I grew up in an alcoholic family, not that I ran away from alcohol, I for sure tried it. I was interested. Like, what is this all about? And why are these, I just didn't go real far with it because I think of the trauma that I grew up with had a lot to do with keeping me away from it.
Yeah.
Always kind of at an arm's distance and not letting myself get too... And physically, I have something called diabetes insipidus, which basically my kidneys don't retain water. They don't filter. They filter, but they don't retain where a normal human being has a hormone that's sent from your brain to your kidney that says you hold your fluids, and that's how you don't dehydrate. Well, mine doesn't happen. It's a pituitary gland thing that's a message it's sent. So when I drink, I become even double dehydrated. So like the hangover headache is really bad, and I'm super, super dehydrated. So that was another reason, because that's just something I've dealt with my whole life as a kid with that disease, and having to be rushed to the emergency room for dehydration. I never wanted to push it too much. But I had parents that divorced when I was young, and my mom was a drinker, and my dad would smoke pot. But I never really saw my dad do it. I could just smell it in the house. He was a more uptight man, so it seemed to relax him on some level. Not necessarily when it came to me, but it did relax him on some level. Yeah. My mom was a drinker, and at one point was a very heavy and sometimes out of control drinker. So, there's bad memories that I have of my mom either being drunk at home, or I'd say it wasn't like every day, but there would be a binge that would happen about every maybe couple weeks or something. And it would be like, oh, I'm going to stop after work. And I immediately knew what that meant. Mm-hmm. Great. How long do you think you're going to be? And it would immediately get faced with like this defensiveness, like, don't question me, I'm your mom kind of thing. I'm the adult, blah, blah, blah. Yet I'm at home at 8, 9, 10 by myself after I've walked home from school. I was a latchkey kid, so that wasn't an issue. But, I'm there wondering about dinner and anybody around and whatever. So that was kind of a lonely place a lot of times for me. Yeah. And having to sort of entertain myself and fend for myself. I think maybe that's why I'm such a daydreamer. I'm such like an artsy type of person, because I was left to entertain myself a lot. Yeah. And I knew numbers by heart. Certain places my mom would frequent that I would call. And I would sometimes find her there, and sometimes I wouldn't. Usually when I found her there, it wasn't really a good situation. It wasn't a good conversation on the phone. It was somebody hung up on each other. And sometimes I would hear things like, I'm never coming home again, Danny. And then sometimes I would hear, oh, I'll be home when I want to be home. But the never coming home again, that's hard at that age, because you're going, what?
Yeah, it doesn't make sense to your kid.
She had a long-term relationship with a man that who was overall, he was okay. But I remember one night she walked out on the both of us drunk, and he kind of looked at me, and we sat there and had a short conversation for a moment. And he was like, well, I guess she's gone, so take care, Danny. And I was like, wow. Yeah. That's what's going on here. Okay. So don't get me wrong. My mom changed her life. She came in like a wrecking ball more than once. And she affected my sister and myself psychologically and emotionally. Yeah. But she turned it around. She stopped drinking, at least at that level. And we were adults, so we no longer had to live around it and be around it if that's what she was doing. But I could tell that's not what she was doing. Yeah. So she did change. But there was a lot of turmoil that had to happen before that occurred, starting with my sister and her, which they didn't talk for 6 years because of my mom's drinking. And I always felt in the middle. Yeah. Because I had a sister that I adored and I loved and I was close with. And then I have my mom. And let's face it, most of us love and adore our moms no matter what they do. Absolutely. And my mom definitely wasn't the worst mom in the world. And she wasn't the best mom in the world. She was my mom, and I love her no matter what. Yeah. And I always will. But there was things that happened that occurred, and this affected everybody. So that put strain on their relationship but 6 years later, they reconnected. And that's where my mom's life really started, I think, to change, where she realized, I can't screw this one up again. Yeah. Meanwhile, out of her 5 brothers and sisters, and I think she's a twin, a maternal twin, not identical, but she and her twin are the second oldest. And there was 2 others besides her and her twin. one older sister, and all the rest of them except the older sister have passed.
Yeah.
And passed early.
Yeah.
Because alcohol was a big abuser. Her twin sister, I saw her in a rehabilitation center before she passed, hooked to, like a thing in her throat that helped her breathe or whatever. Yeah. And she had a leg that had been amputated years before, and had a hand that was broken from falling and was never fixed. So it was kind of not really that functional. I don't want to say functional, but not that reliable. And she was basically taken off life support, taken off the air.
Yeah. And
let die. Yeah. But she drank herself to the ground. So it's an ugly thing for me.
Yeah.
But I won't lie. I enjoy having a drink sometimes.
Well, that's different.
And I don't drink very often. I drank at Thanksgiving. Yeah. I had like 3 beers that night after my meal, which was a surprise because I was full. Mm-hmm. But before that, I think I had a drink before we moved with maybe Tom when he came over to say, pick up some stuff and say bye. But it's not very often. Do I like to drink to get a buzz on? Oh, yeah. Yeah, I enjoy that.
It's fun.
It's fun.
Right? Yeah.
But I don't keep going because it's like, then that's when I don't make sound judgment calls and decisions when I'm in that state of mind. Yeah. And like I said, physically, it's kind of brutal on me.
Yes, yeah.
But I do enjoy that euphoria. I'm not going to lie. Sure. I think it's fun sometimes. And you and I have had some hilarious fun times on it.
Yeah, we have.
But yeah, your reaction to it last time was weird.
Yeah.
But I think that was just what we were drinking. It was like a pre-made in the can kind of, ew, what was that? It was one of those Jack Daniels and Coke. But you're like, what Coke, there's no label of who the Coke is. It's just Jack Daniels.
Yeah.
And I could tell by the taste of it. I was like, ew, that Coke is awful. But, so anyways, but it's like, we don't need it to have fun.
No.
I think we both are. I'll speak for us on this one, is that we're definitely pot advocates. We use that regularly. And I enjoy that, but I don't make unsound decisions with that. And it never gets to a point where I'm willing to give up or I can't make it to work or, if anything, it's like I just want to eat everything in sight. That's the biggest issue with that. But that's also because of not smoking. So
totally. I didn't make like this conscious decision of that I wasn't going to drink. But I did make these promises to myself that I wasn't going to be like my mom in a lot of different ways. And that was one of the ways that I just didn't want to be like her. I never saw her out of control except maybe once. And it was a horrible experience for me because she actually pulled her own hair out. And the screaming that she was doing during the whole thing just made me so against it. It's like, I don't want to ever be like that. And I knew that. So it just didn't happen until I had my single partying time. And that's when I realized I do enjoy this, but in moderation. Yeah. And that's where things happen, is that they get out of control. And I was told by my brother Dan that it's okay for me to tell his story. It's important for me to tell his story. I'm not going to share his whole story or even half of it because I don't know it.
Right.
I just know that him and my sister watched our dad and their mother drink a lot. And it affected them so much that they are both alcoholics. Yep. Now, he died from it. Yeah. He was yellow by the time that he died. Yeah. And she almost died from it. She was on the transplant list. So with him, when I realized at the very beginning, because I was told straight out the gate that he's an alcoholic, it really turned me off. And I didn't really want much to do with him. He was an angry alcoholic, and same with my dad. That was, he's fine until he starts drinking. And then he calls me being, erratic.
Right. However, with Dan, though, most of the time that you actually interacted with him, he was intoxicated.
He was, yes. Uh-huh. And it sucks because, now I feel the true essence of what he is. And I hear him and he tells me about how he wishes he would have done things differently and the alcohol wasn't worth it. But the problem is that once your body becomes used to it, it's very, very difficult to get off of it.
Oh, yeah.
So he would tell us, I'm trying, I'm just having small sips so that I don't have the shakes. But it just doesn't work when you're at that point, when you feel like, okay, this is just making it okay for me to be alive, but
Right.
I don't want to feel that way. And with a lot of people, the alcohol, it numbs that. It numbs whatever is going on in your life.
Right. But there is a physical addiction.
Oh, yeah, there is.
That's, I think, one reason why, if I was to pick something for myself to use, which I have, which would mainly be pot, that's one of the big reasons I did go with that, because there wasn't a physical addiction to
Right.
it. It was more of a psychological, like, can I go 6 months without it? And I
Right.
have many times in my life.
Yeah.
Years. But, you know, there wasn't going to be the shakes.
Right.
And
no.
the throwing up and
Yeah.
and that whole thing. And so literally you get yourself backed into a corner with this, like many drugs, but alcohol is a drug, man.
Yeah.
And it is a gnarly drug, and to the point where you can't keep anything down but alcohol.
Yeah.
And that your body actually requires it to get up and face the day.
Yeah.
Like you're shaking erratically until you have a drink, and that calms your body.
Yep.
But as I had aunts that were very, like I said, heavy and ultimately died, one of them was told by their doctor, I'm not really going to suggest that you quit cold turkey at this point in your life, because it's going to throw your
Yeah.
body into a severe shock that alone could cost you your life.
Absolutely.
That's pretty gnarly.
That is. It really is.
To go, I have succumbed to this drug that much that if I quit it, I could die from not having it.
Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah, no.
Yep. When I put up the promo for this week, there were some comments under it. And Jenna said, oof, the one that hits home and no one talks about it. Sunshine responded to that, same, I know I drink too much, not like concerningly, but sometimes close to that line. Jenna said back to Sunshine, I lost my grandpa to complications of alcoholism, and my close friend lost her husband 2 years ago. None of us even knew he ever drank more than one, ever. It's surprising, sad, and something to be aware of. Family lines and addictions are real, but it's so easy for me to forget sometimes, especially with the social acceptance of drinking. And then Sunshine said, I can totally relate. My uncle and aunt were alcoholics. Uncle might not have unalived himself if he had rational thought. My aunt says she's sober, but you can hear it in her voice. And it's sad to see the cousin following the same narrative. Yeah.
Right.
My mom never drank. Herb is her drug of choice, but I spent a lot of time at my cousin's growing up, so I wonder if that's where I got it.
Yeah.
I know it's genetic, and my whole dad's side is alcoholics. They weren't around. I learned this all in 2011 to 2016 before anyone but my one aunt passed from poor health choices. So then I looked it up. Is alcohol genetic? And it said there is evidence of a genetic component in alcoholism. Research indicates that individuals with a family history of alcohol use disorder may have a higher risk of developing it themselves. While genetic plays a role, environmental factors and personal choices also influence the development of alcoholism.
Right.
It's a complex interplay between genetic predisposition and external factors.
It is. And I think it's really hard to say definitively, but I would go as far as to say, you know, I was born in the 70s and my mom smoked with me through her whole pregnancy.
Yeah.
And I grew up in a house full of smoke.
Yeah.
I was naturally going to smoke.
Yeah.
You see, I was already addicted to nicotine.
Yeah.
So the minute I would have moved out or left that house and didn't live around that anymore, I would have craved a cigarette.
Yeah.
I did anyways.
Yeah.
I don't know if was like a craving or just the curiosity or both.
Yeah.
Or the fact that I lived inside my mom.
Yeah.
You know. Now that's not a definite proof because Marina's mother smoked with her while she was pregnant.
Right.
Marina did not end up being a smoker.
No.
However, she witnessed both of her parents being smokers, and that turned her off.
Absolutely. Yep.
So, I think her mom still does smoke, but so And the other thing about alcohol too is that, a lot of people want to say marijuana is the gateway drug. Mm-hmm. Well, I think alcohol is first and foremost, because it's such a high killer in our country and globally, that it is the true gateway. As a matter of fact, it doesn't even require another substance. Yeah. It will take you down itself.
Yeah.
But it is way worse because you cannot prove, and we have not been able to prove, any death related to marijuana ever.
No.
So, there's not a very good argument there.
Yeah.
And again, like I said, I can tell, like, when I get to a point where I've consumed too much alcohol, I know I'm not the same me.
Right. Totally.
I'm not.
None of us are. Yeah,
No.
Absolutely.
Your inhibitions, it shuts them off.
It does.
So they're just out the window, and you'll do just about whatever.
I've told this story before, but many may not have heard it. But there was a point after my divorce, I was going through my divorce, where my brother and I were watching this comedian, Jim Jeffries, and he starts making fun of people that don't like the taste of alcohol and saying, nobody likes it. We drink because life is shit because we have to. And it clicked in my head at that moment.
It's true.
And my brother and I had like little bottles of alcohol in the fridge, and there were some Jägermeister in there, and I went, he's right. And I went and I drank myself a bottle of Jägermeister, and I calmed down. And because going through a divorce and everything that came with it, it was really hard. And I was, I guess, looking for something, Yeah. But it never became something that I did every day. It was at times when things got really bad. There was a night that I remember laying in the bathtub with a bottle of vodka and crying. And, it happens.
Right.
It does. It happens. But I'm so thankful that I never caught that alcoholism gene, because I feel like I've been surrounded by it my entire life. For me, it wasn't like you. You saw a lot of like negativity, and I feel like I was sheltered from a lot of like the craziness that can come with the alcoholism. My aunt was funny. She would get drunk and she would just start laughing and rolling around and, being all nice and everything. But then the snap could happen.
Well, that's what happens with a lot of people.
Yeah.
That's what I mean. When too much is
didn't see it.
consumed, it's
Yeah.
the Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde.
Mm-hmm.
So most family holidays, at least my mom's side, because there was a majority of the alcohol abuse and drug abuse period was going on that side. My dad's side, my grandfather, my dad's dad, was a hardcore alcoholic and quite a violent man too for many years, and then finally quit. But I used to hear stories from my dad about him witnessing him being violent with like his wife or my grandmother and the oldest sibling, which I think in turn kind of made my dad a little bit violent, because this is what he saw of how to deal with a kid. This is what he saw on a regular basis.
With boomers.
Yeah, and so it took him some time to realize that wasn't right, and we've worked, through that, and I have, but that was a big part of my life too. So not every day, but it doesn't have to be every day to traumatize you, and F you up in the head.
Yeah.
Like my mom, it wasn't every day.
Yeah.
But it was enough, more than I could count on my fingers and toes.
Yeah.
Combined, and it was enough to jack me up to a certain level. I love my mom very much, and I'm very proud of her for getting control of her life back and kind of living it out naturally, instead of like all her younger siblings who have passed before her, and some of her nieces and nephews that have passed from drug overdoses and alcoholism. My mom has outlived a majority of her family. All that's left is her and her older sister, out of 5 of them, and a mother and father and siblings. So it's crazy. It's really crazy.
It is. And you know what? One of the biggest things I see too is the denial. Is when, like my dad, for example, when Dan died, and I told him, I said, people have been telling me that, his skin
for months.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Like my sister and I were like, how is he still alive with how yellow he is? But my dad goes, no, this was a heart attack. This was his high blood pressure. He will not accept the fact that this was alcoholism.
Because he'll have to look at his own behavior.
Absolutely. And I understand. But see, this is why we're here.
It's funny too because I ended up marrying somebody that was a lot like my mother. For my first marriage, a heavy drinker and violent when they drank. Violent, period, but violent when they drank.
Yeah.
And some of the times I would share some of the things with my mom about what was going on with Marina and her mom.
Yeah.
And my mom would, in kind of an indirect way, I don't want to say make excuses for it or make it okay, but you could tell that there was this level of guilt inside her, knowing that there were some similar things that had happened to me.
Yeah.
And I can't, make that okay.
Right.
Because there was things that happened to me growing up as a kid that I said I will never do.
Yeah.
Right? One is I'm never going to hit my kid.
Yeah.
And especially with a closed fist.
Yeah.
And I'm never going to have my kid looking for me in a bar or a drug dealer's house. And it's never going to happen.
Yeah.
Never.
No, absolutely. And it was honestly one of the reasons I didn't have kids. Not that I thought I would be an alcoholic like my mom, but it just, all of that, it's like you don't want to take those things that happened to you when you were a child and carry them on to your own children because you don't even realize that you're doing it a lot of the time. And I think, that was a part of my mom's issue. My grandma was not a big drinker, and my grandma and he wasn't biologically my grandfather, but they both lived to be very old. And they would drink occasionally. My grandma would have a glass of wine. Right. My grandfather, they had a bar in their house. They would have, whatever. But I never saw them drunk. That was never the intention of it. So where my mom and my aunt got it from, I don't know. But then my aunt carried it on to her son. Both my brother and I are not big drinkers. So
I think it's more of a behavioral thing, honestly, than it is a genetic. But I'm just going to go with that.
I do too, yeah, for sure.
At least for alcohol, because I think you see people doing it. I saw people doing it.
Yeah.
And most of the time, holidays, I think I started to say this, holidays were ruined.
Yeah.
They started out fun and bubbly and we're all getting buzzed.
Yeah.
And then it was ended with somebody was sitting across the table from somebody glaring at them angrily in this drunken state,
Yeah.
I had two aunts in particular that were always going at each other. They loved each other and they were close, but they just were around each other too much and there was always fighting.
Yeah.
Drinking and fighting. Drinking and fighting.
Yeah.
And my mom was the third wheel of this. She didn't always participate in their fun, but she did a lot. And so, the holidays typically got ruined by that kind of behavior. So I think my biggest kind of thing about it all is really abandonment issues, like having somebody kind of walk out on me. And I can see that Marina has similar stuff.
Yeah, for
because
sure.
of it. And like I said, there was a similarity in what I chose that first time, which I'm sorry for that to my kid and to the universe for putting her through that. But I wouldn't have her if I didn't make that choice.
Everything happens for a reason.
So I'm still happy that I went through it.
Yeah.
And I have her because she's my everything in that, as far as a child, you know. But she had to endure some stuff like I did.
Yeah.
But we can relate to each other on a lot of levels.
Absolutely.
Too. That maybe she couldn't with other people.
Absolutely. And with you and I, too, it's like our stories are very different.
Yeah.
But they're very similar, too. They're very, I didn't have the ruining of the holidays because of alcoholism. I just had that because of drama.
Yeah.
Definitely can relate to that. But the alcoholism became more evident as I got older. And after my mom died, it was actually the day after her funeral. My cousin and my aunt and I and a few other people went out to eat, and my cousin was drinking and started becoming belligerent in the restaurant and saying things to my aunt about what a horrible mother she is. And I had to leave because my mom just died. And I'm sitting here thinking, he still has his mother.
Yeah.
And
good for you.
Oh, yeah, I left.
Don't let him entertain you. That's that's baloney.
No, that was horrible. That was another one of those moments where I was just like, what is the matter with you people? Like, where do you get this from? Like, that's my thing. Your thing is abandonment. Mine is I don't like drama, and I don't like people being mean to each other, and I don't like it causing that kind of thing, you know? And that was it with Dan, too. And I tried explaining that to him, was that I can't have a relationship with you when you're going to get drunk and not just message me, but also message my husband, saying things that, you know, weren't really great. Like, he said to me many times when he was drunk that he didn't believe my psychic abilities. It was the first thing he said to me when he passed, besides "I'm sorry," was "I believe in you and I'm sorry that I didn't
I think
believe you."
most of the people that we know in our life, and there's some real peaches that I'm not going to name right now, that are going to say that to you.
Absolutely.
That shunned you.
Yeah.
Acted like you were crazy.
Yeah.
And they're going to die first.
Yeah.
I hope to God they die first.
Yeah.
And they're going to tell you that.
Yep.
I'm sorry. Sorry I didn't believe you.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's all right.
That's okay.
You know,
That's
you were
it's
living
fine.
your Midwest best life.
Right.
You know?
It's fine.
Believing
That
all the
doesn't bother me.
freaking, you know, hoopla.
Yeah. As I had mentioned at the beginning of the episode, I asked how many people were affected by alcoholism, and 54% of them said that they were a lot. So some of the comments were, Lori said, "My father and one of my best friends were alcoholic. Both died young because of it."
Yeah.
Jessica said, "My dad passed from complications from alcoholism at 42. I didn't realize or admit I had a problem until my late 30s. Chelsea said, 3 generations of my mom's side drank themselves to death. I am lucky I was not one of them." So you can see that it affects a lot of people in different ways. You don't have to be the alcoholic yourself for it to affect you.
Oh, no.
Not at all.
And there's a strange part about this, you know, alcohol has been around for a very, 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 very long time. So it has been acceptable in all societies for a long time. It has been abused.
Yeah.
Probably not as long, but it has been abused for a long time.
Yeah.
I find it very interesting in our country, in America, that there was a period up till right before Prohibition where actually this is during Prohibition when alcohol is illegal, to correct myself. So alcohol is illegal during Prohibition and marijuana is legal.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Okay?
Yeah.
What's the purpose of this?
Right.
First of all, why aren't they both legal at the same time? I find that interesting. And then almost immediately, when Prohibition is lifted and alcohol is now legal, they illegalize marijuana.
Right.
Not just make it illegal, but put it to a class 1 drug.
Yeah.
So it's up there with like heroin.
Yeah.
Or come on.
Yeah.
Nicotine, heroin, put them in the same category because, they don't do the same thing, but they're both ridiculously addictive.
Yeah, absolutely.
Ridiculously addictive.
Yeah.
Probably even along with cocaine.
Yeah.
Alcohol equally as addictive and life crumbling. The ones that are more mind-freeing and not physically addictive are the ones that get put in the class 1. Like, these are extremely dangerous, like mushrooms and marijuana, LSD. You know, well, anything's extremely dangerous without moderation. And you're just being dumb.
Yeah.
But I can speak from personal experience and knowledge of others that I've seen and grown up with that they don't even compare.
No, they don't.
They're not nearly as dangerous.
No. And, you know, I tried to microdose mushrooms for a while, and I will tell you that it is not something I could do every day or 3-4 days a week the way that people use it. No, absolutely not. And I have a highly addictive personality. So I don't think that is one of those drugs that you really get addicted to because it's not like that, you know? And marijuana...
We don't use it that way either.
No.
That's more of just for an experience. And...
No, absolutely. But the microdosing, like I did it to see, first of all, if it would make my connection even stronger. But also, you know, depression, anxiety, they say a lot of people get off antidepressants with it. But It just made me hyper and more emotional.
Yeah.
So it wasn't the thing for me. But when I was going and putting this together, I thought, I think everybody has a drug.
Absolutely, I think so. For the most part,
It
the
may,
majority of people.
Yeah. It may not actually be a drug. It may not be alcohol. It may not be, a physical drug. It might be shopping. It might
We'll
be...
just call it a vice.
Right, a vice,
Right.
exactly. There are so many things. Even God. Like, I was trying to think about my Aunt Carol. Like, what is her vice? Because, like, that woman is interesting. And I'm like, you don't even know, like, what's actually going on in the real world. But okay. So I'm like, what is her vice? Probably God, I think. I think it could be anything, but we all have something. And what is it for? It's to comfort us. Yeah. It's to reduce stress. It's to make this experience here on earth more bearable, more easier to deal with. But the thing is that there's things that were put here for us to use naturally, and there are things that are not natural for us to use.
Right.
And it's those unnatural things that are the big problem.
And usually those are the ones that are shoved and pushed and promoted and marketed within society. Because that's a great question. The only thing I can think of is you just have greed. You have somebody there that has the amount of money to push this thing and market it and promote it in such a way that, like, most of the narcotics that you see on the market today, they are pushed and pushed and pushed.
They are.
Through the medical industry.
Well,
and they're freaking dangerous.
They are. But also, like, okay, so we just moved to Vegas, right? And it is, I mean, I lived here before, but for whatever reason, it didn't hit me before, but it's a shock to me now how everything is alcohol here. Have you noticed that? Like, you go down to Fremont Street and you can drink whatever you want. There's bars all the way down the line. It's all alcohol. It's like gambling and alcohol is what's going on here. Yeah. And the insurance rates are higher because the DUIs happen more here. Yeah. It's just like, whoa, it really is a huge thing here. And it's one thing if you can do it responsibly, but there's just so many people that can't. They just can't,
But even the one that says they can, they start the evening out that way, isn't necessarily how it ends.
Well, that's what I mean, is just because you say that you can handle your alcohol does not mean that you can. My mom would have sworn up and down she could handle her alcohol. And I didn't have that many bad experiences with the alcohol. But still, if you need it, if it's in your purse everywhere you go... if that's the priority, there's a problem. Yeah. There's a problem.
Yep.
I asked our listeners one other question. I asked them, how often do you drink alcohol? And 52% said rarely, if ever. 22% said a few days a month. 10% said a few days a week. 6% said every day. 10% said that they are recovering alcoholics, but absolutely nobody admitted to being an alcoholic currently. Jackie said, I will be shocked if people are totally honest on this one. This group is amazing, and I feel comfortable, too, because Nancy had said to her, do you really think that people won't be honest? But you know what? That was my first thought. When I put these poll questions up, people that are maybe an alcoholic are not going to click that button. They're gonna totally avoid that, or lie. And I understand that, because it is a hard thing to kind of face in yourself. Maybe my drinking isn't normal. Maybe the fact that I need it to survive is not normal. They don't maybe see it for what it is. So I definitely agree with Jackie on there. But Nancy said, I feel like everyone here feels comfortable enough to be honest. I have never felt judged by this group. And then Jackie said, what I mean is we lie to ourselves so we don't have to face the truth about our addiction. I lie to myself daily.
Yeah. And that's truth, and I appreciate that. I appreciate the honesty. And again, nobody has to be honest, even in the group. They don't have to say anything.
Yeah.
But if you're lying, you're just cheating yourself.
Yeah.
You're not. It's not hurting any of us because we don't live next to you. We don't deal with you. But you may be hurting your family.
Yeah.
Your immediate family.
Absolutely. A few other comments here. Crystal said, I gave it up 12 years ago. I used to drink copious amounts of alcohol and started at a very young age. I could tell my liver was having a hard time because my hangovers lasted 2 days. I was embarrassed about things I shouldn't even be embarrassed about and analyzing myself the next day. I'm truly glad I did because I'm watching a very dear friend battle cirrhosis in her 30s, and she needs a liver transplant. She's had an extremely hard time finding a donor. Fun fact, I didn't even know she drank.
Wow.
Isn't that crazy how there are so many people that can hide it? Totally hide it from you.
Yeah.
And then you're like, whoa, that person was an alcoholic? Oh my God, I didn't even see that.
Jeez.
Didn't see it. Tracy said, just entered a stretch of no drinking to let my body do some healing. That's good.
That's good.
Very good. Because the liver can fix itself. That's one of the great things about it, is that it can.
Yeah, its job is to relieve toxins.
Yes, exactly. But most of our organs can't. Like our kidneys, once those are damaged, they're damaged. But the liver can rejuvenate itself. So that's nice. I recently met a local psychic here, Brandoline, and I was a guest on her podcast last week, which will come out in a couple of weeks, and I'll release it. But during that podcast episode, we talked about her husband that died a couple of years ago. Wow. And so she commented on there, and she said, my late husband's death certificate says cirrhosis, and it made me so upset because he really died from heart failure. So I'm very vulnerable about saying I drink every day. But she does drink every day. And, she admitted that.
Right.
I don't know, man.
Yeah.
It just makes me so sad to see so many people that are battling this, Yeah. Jessica said, I celebrated 12 years of no alcohol on July 5th, 2023.
Well, good for you.
Yes.
Congratulations.
Yes. Jessica is one of my regular clients. She has one of the memberships, and so we talk a lot. We're close. So I am so proud of her, and she's gone through some stuff that has made it so that she could start drinking again. I mean, it could happen at any time. But, when you have a loss or something happens like that, it sometimes can force you to take back on that drinking.
Yep.
So she said, I quit drinking in 2011 and got Invitation, that was her horse, about 3 weeks later. He was the anchor to my sobriety. I am very proud of myself, that's hard to say, for not returning after he passed last year. I became a different person when drinking, and I never really liked that person anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally understand. Absolutely. And it's like, I remember when I would drink and go out and have a good time, and then the next day would remember some of the things I did and was like, oh, yeah, that's not like me.
Yeah, that's the part that you're just like, yeah, this doesn't suit me real well. And quite honestly, as soon as the belligerent drunk enters the room, I'm like just turned off.
Yeah, me too.
And usually they gravitate towards me. And I'm like, don't come near me.
Yeah.
And not to say I've never been the sloppy drunk, but
I have.
It's just like those, it's the trauma in me that goes, eesh.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't want to talk to this person. I don't want to deal with this person.
I like it when people have had a couple of drinks and they're funny and they're tipsy, and that's more fun to watch from the outside than being that person. But I can definitely look back to the times that I've been really, really drunk and go, I can't imagine being like that every day. Like, not that I regret it. It was just letting a part of myself out that I never was able to let out before, but not something that I would want to do.
And even when I kind of review the times that I will drink or have drank in my life, it's usually like the first half an hour is what's fun.
Yep.
That's what's fun. Yep. Like you get that little buzz going, but then the buzz gets a little too much, and then the evening goes on and on and on.
Yeah.
And then I just feel miserable.
Me too.
I feel miserable then, and I feel miserable the next day.
I've never been the type of person that can like have a mimosa with breakfast. I will have a migraine for the rest of the day. Yeah. It's like, I kind of envy that. People that can just have a glass of wine. I literally have to have a bottle of wine because I have to chase the migraine so it doesn't come on.
Right.
But that's probably, maybe something to do with the allergic side of things. But yeah, I'm thankful that my body doesn't like it. Because it is highly addictive, and I do have that highly addictive personality. So who knows? But I mean, really, like even more than what I've mentioned today, I can look back at so many people in my life that were alcoholics. I've just been surrounded by it. It's absolutely wild. And even looking back, like to myself, I had a friend that would bring alcohol to middle school at Redwood. She would bring, like, in a thermos, alcohol, and we would all sit there and drink it in between classes. And it's like, what are you doing? You're 13 years old. What are you doing?
Gross.
Yeah. I look back now and I'm like, you just wanted to be cool. That was the thing, is you just wanted to do what everybody else was doing. It wasn't because you enjoyed it, Right.
But those people are typically the ones I shouldn't say typically, often are the ones that their lives are not real pretty in the end.
No, my very first serious boyfriend, when we were moving, I went through a bunch of papers and I found this note that he had written me, and it was something about I couldn't sleep. He was 14 at the time, couldn't sleep, so I got up and I drank off the bottle of Jack Daniels. This is a guy now that is my age, but has had multiple DUIs and had lost a lot in the past. I mean, I believe he's a recovering alcoholic now, but lost a lot in the past because of it. And it's like, whoa, just to look at all these people and go, why did this happen to you? Like, what was it that caused this? Was it watching, because his parents were an alcoholic, so what is it just that you get that feeling and you're like, I need this feeling now because I feel a little bit better about my life or about whatever, and it makes you kind of put on this mask for a little while, but the mask isn't there forever. It comes off, and then what? Then you still have life that you have to deal with. You know? It's
That's
sad.
true.
It makes me very sad.
Yeah.
So if you have this kind of problem, where can you get some help? Well, I think we gave it out a couple of weeks ago, but I'm going to give it out
You can get
again.
help in a lot of places.
You can. But one of the places that you can reach out to help is the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Hotline. It's a 24-hour hotline. It's 1-800-662-HELP or 4357. It's a confidential, free, 24-hour day, 365-day-a-year information service in both English and Spanish for individuals and family members facing mental and or substance abuse disorders.
Yeah.
This service provides referrals to local treatment facilities, support groups, and community-based organizations. On top of that, seeking professional help such as a counselor or a therapist can absolutely be a crucial step in this. Yeah. Because if you think about it, most people drink, like I said, to cover something up, to cover their depression or whatever it is. So talking about it, getting it out, being able to handle it in different ways is definitely helpful.
And fortunately, as a result of this being such a widespread, epidemic, at least in our country, there is probably most likely an AA meeting somewhere nearby you.
Yes, absolutely.
These are everywhere, and they often multiple times during the day. So you can find them in the evening, daytime, morning, whatever. And this is a great way for you to get out of your head, to be in a room with people that you might relate to, and not feel, like an outcast or a black sheep or, shunned. There are typically a room full of people feeling just like you. Yes. So keep that in mind.
Absolutely.
The holidays are tough.
The holidays are,
So that's part of the reason I think we wanted to talk about this during this time, is because this is a hard time for a lot of people.
It is.
It can be hard just watching other people, it not be hard for other people, or what we perceive not being hard for other people, then can be hard for us.
Absolutely.
So, but we're not here to compare.
No.
We're just trying to let and acknowledge and lend a hand, like extend an olive branch to people out there that could use something during this time of the year.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you know what? If there's anybody that's listening and you feel like you can't take any of these other steps, message me. We'll talk about it. I have a client that she is an alcoholic and every once in a while falls off the wagon, and she messages me as soon as it happens and we talk. And then she gets better and then it gets worse again. But it's like sometimes you just need somebody to talk to. And it's not even necessarily about me talking back. It's just listening. Yeah. Sometimes you just need somebody to listen. So if you need that, I'm here to help. That's what I'm here for.
Yeah.
So
cool.
Yeah.
Nice of you to offer.
Yeah, because you know what? Gosh, there's been so many times in my life that if I had somebody offer something like that to me, not even related to that, but you just need to talk. Just, whatever. Yeah. Like, we'll just talk. It's, sometimes that's all you need to help you feel better.
I agree.
But this is one of those things that if you are an alcoholic, don't beat yourself up for it, because it is hard. It's very, very hard. I know I'm not an alcoholic, so it's easy for me to say that. Right. But I've been surrounded by it so much that I realize how hard it is to quit something like this. And it does take a lot of willpower. Quitting anything takes a lot of willpower.
Yeah, it does.
But something like this, especially if it's been a long time thing, can be very, very hard to find the willpower to do it.
Yeah.
And that's where, like, finding, like, the AA or support groups or whatever, and finding like-minded people. Marina went to an AA meeting. She didn't need to go to the meeting. She went with a friend who was sober, recovering alcoholic. And she was like, wow, it was beautiful. It was like, you know, I wasn't there because I needed to, but it was just great to see how the people come together and they're so happy. And she's like, and I would love to go again. So I've never been to an AA meeting, but I've heard that from so many people that it's like just community. So, you know, don't be embarrassed either.
No, because it's a room full of people facing the same thing you're facing.
Exactly.
And you're going to hear stories that you most likely would relate to.
Absolutely.
So you feel more like, okay, I'm not alone in this. This is not abnormal, or I'm not a freak of nature.
No, not at all. Not at all.
This
None
is
of us
a
are.
widespread epidemic.
It is. And really, like I said before, we all have a drug. We all have something that we use to cope. And it just, you know, it's about being healthier and not letting that, whatever it is that you use, control your life.
Yeah, and for me, it was a lot about, I got to break this cycle. I can't do it like everybody before me was doing it. Not everybody, but a lot of people that I witnessed before me. I can't do it this way.
Yeah.
I especially knew at a young age, a really young age, that I would be a father. I knew that. I wanted that. And I was like, I owe it to my kid to do it different.
Yep.
If I can. I'm not perfect, but there were certain things, you know, like I said, that I just could not allow myself to repeat.
Yep.
And so that was one of them.
And it really, quitting it can be done, as hard as it seems.
Yeah.
Like, I know a lot of recovering alcoholics, my uncle, my sister, there's a lot of them. So for those of you that are recovering alcoholics, we're proud of you.
Yeah.
And congratulations. And, you know, if you ever do fall off the wagon, it's okay.
Yeah.
Just do what you did before to get yourself back on. That's all.
Yeah.
You know?
And if you're even thinking about it, proud of you for thinking about it.
Absolutely.
You don't have to look at it as like, oh, how am I going to get a year sober or 2 years? You don't need to do it that way. You do it one day at a time. Yep. 1 minute at a time, 1 second at a time. And it gets easier and easier and easier and easier.
Yep.
You know? And you'll get faced with things that rock your boat and challenge you and test you of like, are you going to go running to that again?
Sure.
Or are you going to face life this time and, you know, deal with it differently?
Yep.
So
exactly.
We all have choices here.
We do.
We're not, you know, limited to only one choice. We have choices. Great. So we can break that cycle, make that change in our life and our family's lives, or we can continue to do what we're doing.
Absolutely.
And, you know, the end result isn't going to be pretty.
Yeah, definitely.
Most likely.
Yeah.
So.
Well, that was a heavy episode.
Yeah.
But it was good. I like to hear other people's stories.
I do too.
And I mean, it sucks how many people that this topic has affected, but at the same time, at least we all know that there are people out there that understand that we're not alone. It's not like some, you know, weird thing that, you know, there's a lot of people that have been affected.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
It was good.
Yeah.
So I'm glad.
Yeah, me too.
Well, before we say goodbye to everybody, you want to share your information one more time?
Yes, you can find me at SamanthaJonesPsychicMedium.com or on Etsy at Beyond the Bridge 11.
Yay.
And you, sir?
DJonesArtCollection.com for the web, at DJonesArtCollection for Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. And for my photography, at DJones71 Photography for Instagram, and for Etsy, DJonesPhotography71.
Hey.
And that's it for me.
Fabuloso.
Well, we hope you guys did get something out of it this week.
That we do.
Sorry if it was a downer.
Yeah.
That's not where we're coming from.
No.
We want to see people make changes and differences for themselves and the others in their lives.
Yes.
So if it applies, address accordingly.
Yes.
If it doesn't, move on, tell a friend. I
Yes.
don't know. But, you know, just we want to be aware of everything and try to talk about a lot of things, and this happens to be one of them.
Yes.
So that we're both greatly affected by ourselves.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
We hope everybody has a great week.
That we do.
And until next week, peace and love.